So welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites with Roko and Michelle. And this week it came from a lesson from Ted Lasso. So, and I didn't realize grounded and wooden, which Roko told me about, which we'll talk about. But anyway, it's the power of believe, the power of believe. And so we'll start off with a quote, and then we'll come back and do some thoughts on it. So only those who can see the invisible can do the impossible. And so this quote, because it just fit right in, because the power of believing, right, or believe, is that it's not something that's come to be yet, and you may not have ever experienced that it happened in the past, but it's this thing inside that says, I know it can be true. I know we can do it. I know we have the potential, whether it's the individual, whether it's the team, to continue the momentum to see it through. So that's what I have right now.
Yeah, when we were initially talking about this, we talked about possibilities, and I think that's really what that quote speaks to too, is that you have to have a mindset of possibility. There's an endless amount of possibilities, and though you may not know with certainty what the thing is, you at least have to have the belief that there is some answer or some possibility out there to do that thing.
Yeah, I go back to Ted Lasso, right? And so full disclosure, I told Roko, I've only watched 2 of the episodes. I think it was like the first one, and then it may have been the last episode in the first season, right? And I'd never seen it before. I hadn't heard of it before, but I've heard of people talking about his teaching lessons, and the fact that you take this guy who was basically minor league. I don't know that was he college?
He wasn't even in soccer.
Yeah, no, but he was a football coach, wasn't he?
Right.
So, but not at some, division high performing team. And so he got pulled over to be a soccer coach. But, and this is the thing it comes back to, right, is that the team actually improved. It got better. The dynamics and the interaction of the team became more supportive. Well, they were completely dysfunctional, and it was a team of one, right? Basically, but one being an individual, not team of one, like you would have a team. And it was just really cool because it was one of the things, I think the water boy, whoever it was, he respected him. He put the power of belief in each of the teammates that they never thought possible before. And when you do that, I mean, great things happen. The other thing that comes to mind for me is because I had a leadership interaction with someone at some point that they believed that, or they had this belief that in order to manage a team, you had to be the subject matter expert on what the function was. And I don't believe that to be the case. I think if you're an effective leader, then you can pull the team together, you can lean on their expertise and accomplish great things. You don't have to be the subject matter expert. You do if you're going to micromanage them. Okay. But if you empower people to be off and running, you just have to believe it's possible and step in as a leader with that skills. And that's what Ted Lasso did. And so it just struck me that this show that, granted, I do want to watch more episodes, but powerful lessons. I mean, it struck me, and I just watched 2 episodes.
Yeah. And so as you're saying that example, what comes back to me is, going to the wooden pyramid around, he talks about, in order for you to develop other people, you have to develop yourself. And so Ted Lasso himself, probably over the course of his career, had to learn how to believe in others. That it wasn't just about him as the leader being the success factor, that he had to have a belief in the people on the team could do the work. And in order for him to show up in that way, he probably had to have some reflection and believe that he could lead in this way.
You know what stood out for me just now is I went to, and I'm sure we've all had it in our own interactions, is you also have to believe that the people that you're engaging with have the best intent. Because I think that's the other power in believe, right? Because we can go down, I think about the, you know, the owner of the team and, you know, put him in this news conference and, you know, but he always had this positive upside and believed that people were coming from a good place, right? And didn't go to this negative place. He could have and talked about it, but he chose not to. And I think that's part of the power too. When you were talking, because I'm flashing through some of this stuff, we've all had interactions, I have, that I've had to manage my emotions through it, because initially people did something unintentionally impacting me that could cause hurt or frustration or anger, whatever it is. But I needed to believe that they had a positive intent, and their intent was not to do the impact, the negative impact it had on me in the moment. So that came to me too, is that part of his leadership style was pulling in, believing that people at their core had good intentions behind the actions that they were taking.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know it's going to probably take us off at a corner. So reel me back in if it does. But when you said the word intent, the David Arquette, I probably butchered his last name. Marquette.
Yeah.
Around Turn the Ship Around. If you haven't watched that video or that TED Talk, watch that video and TED Talk. But he talks about a leader has to give intent, and then, you know, they give control or empower people to perform.
Yeah.
And with that, then you can turn the ship around. Basically, you have success. And so he, you know, the whole Ted Lasso thing around belief, he gave the intent of believe in yourself, that you've earned that right to be there, to be confident as a player on this team, you know. So he gave the intent, and then he gave the control to the team to make a difference, to come together, or to be number one, or to be mediocre and lose, and, you know. But he gave them he gave the intent, and then you know, in turn gave the control to the team. So.
Well, and to your point, they have to believe. So the video that Roko was talking about is the greatness video, right? David Marquette, the book that he wrote was Turn Your Ship Around. He was the Navy nuke sub commander. And I totally agree. It's like when if you go on that video and you think about belief, he believed, and so did the team. He believed in the power of the individuals over the individual functions. And he didn't necessarily, he had actually, not that he didn't necessarily, he had zero evidence that what he was about to do and the path that they were about to take would work. Zero. It had never been done. Okay? That a commander gave over complete control. But to your point, like he says, there was a change in the crew within 24 hours. Because he did give intent, and he did believe, and it wasn't just this wacko crazy thing. But people can give people the opportunity, including yourself, to step into their full potential. And you do that through believing that it's possible.
Right.
You know, even when you have no evidence. I go back to the quote, only those who can see the invisible can do the impossible. Right. So Ted Lasso could see the potential, right? Even though it didn't currently exist in its state, right? Because they were falling dramatically. And there's hope and passion and, you know, motivation and everything behind that. Yeah. I love it. I do too. So thank you. There's one other quote I want to do, and then we'll close it off, and I'll tell you who it is in a minute, you know, but I'll tell you. When you have exhausted all possibilities, remember this, you haven't. So that was Thomas Edison, right? He said something along the lines of that, you know, he basically found 10,000 ways that it didn't work. So it was always this positive upside and believing, right? Believe that it was possible, that it would work out. He would eventually get to that one that worked because of all the ways that he found that didn't work. So,
I know that I always bring it back to what we do with the lean methodology and problem solving, right? But it's when you say that, it's like that is the truest definition of plan, do, check, act, right?
Yes.
It's that rapid cycles of iteration, knowing that at some point you're going to hit the sweet spot and know that that was the thing that got you there, that's a problem. So,
well, and what I'll say, and it's not just blindly going into experimenting.
No.
You actually need to do good thinking on the front end of it, have clarity around the problem you're tasked with solving to get close enough. Because I go back to the Washington Monument story where they did cycles of problem solving over 6 months. Yeah. They did believe that something to do with the lights would break that cycle. And so I agree. And so you've got to stay with it instead of doing plan, do, study, abandon, right? Or plan, do, check, abandon, however you want to do PDCA, PDSA. But yeah, it is. And it's got so many different ways. It's assuming the good in people, right? That you believe that there's a goodness in there. You believe that there's a better way. You believe that the possibility that, we're going to win this whole thing, or we're going to be an amazing leader, or we're going to be the best in whatever it is. That's what keeps us going and engages us. So, yeah. So, Roko, what's 1 or 2 things you want people to walk away with?
Oh my gosh, this is one that just has so many messages in it. It's hard to pick one. I think the power in believe, for me, the biggest takeaway is this idea of possibilities. And when you can have that mindset, the world is, I forget what the saying is, the world's your oyster. Like yeah. I mean, there's so much momentum and power behind that it will take you to places you didn't imagine.
Now you sound like Dr. Seuss. What came to mind for me, I think, is how we identify the opportunity to believe. And I think part of it is at the point where we don't think it's possible. And I think when we get to that point, or when we have this idea in our minds of it can't get any better, whatever it is, I think that's the point to check ourselves and go, you know what, king or queen for a day, I've got the magic wand, whatever that is. Paint the picture of what it could be, okay, and what you want it to be, not what you don't want it to be, but what you want it to be. And I think that's the thing, is start focusing on the fact that that thing is actually possible. But I think it's identifying when we get stuck, so that we do have the opportunity to flip it over or around, or just chuck it to the side of the road and put something new in there. That's what comes to mind for me.
Nice.
Thank you for this. I'm all about, of course, my business is better possibilities. I'm all about believing there's something better. Thank you. This has been Leadership Soundbites with Roko and Michele. Until next time, please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Okay.